Hello, my name's John P. Dixon. It's the middle of September 2010. I'm speaking to you in Phoenix, Arizona. And I want to talk to you about a subject that's near and dear to my heart and friends of Arizona music. It's the story of the song Ramrod that Duane Eddy, of course, as you all know, had a huge hit with many years ago. It was his third hit on Jamie Records. And over the years, there's been a lot of controversy about the record and who may or may not be playing on the record. And recently, a new CD release came out that has liner notes and was compiled, I believe, by Mr. Stuart Coleman, who's a very well-known producer, DJ, writer, and he compiled this CD, the idea being that it's songs by people other than the person listed on the record. So Pseudonym City, the name of the song. One of the songs that he placed on this is the song Ramrod by Frantic Johnny Rogers. And in his liner notes, he states that Frantic Johnny Rogers was in actuality Duane Eddy. And I'm here to state that that is not the case. That's an out-and-out lie, that it's actually Al Casey. Now, I know that this is not the biggest thing with everything going on in the world and all of its problems, but it means a lot to me, number one, because Al is not here. It's been almost 4 years since he passed. And number two, certain people over the years have tried to rewrite history the way they want it and not necessarily the way that it should be. And Duane, over all these years, has insisted that he is playing on his Jamie version of Ramrod. And I, unfortunately, because of this release, decided to put this together to state for the, I don't know, 8 or 9 of you who may really care about this, that it is not Duane, it's Al Casey playing on Duane Eddy's hit version of Ramrod. Probably the biggest factor is that the first version of Ramrod that was released on the Ford record label in July of '57 lists Duane Eddy and his Rockabillys as the artist, and it wasn't Duane, it was Al Casey. Same for the flip side. Caravan, it's Al Casey. This record came out in a quantity of about 500 records. It kind of came and went at the time. Al was under contract to Dodd at the time, and so in my mind, that's why Lee and John Garton, who was a partner in Ford Records, decided to put it out under the name Duane Eddy, because Lee knew that he would be working with Duane. Duane was in Phoenix learning new songs, writing new songs with Lee. And so that's why this record came out. And obviously, it only adds to the confusion of the situation. I must also tell you that Al told me at one time that he could have been playing Duane's guitar on that session, but that Al wrote the song, he's performing it, he knew how to play it, and he played it. So over the course, after this song came out, Movin' and a Groovin' came out. It did fairly well for Duane and Lee, and then Rebel Rouser came out. And so suddenly, Duane found himself on the road in 1958. Al happened to be playing bass in this particular tour, and they were in Philadelphia. They're doing a Saturday night Dick Clark show. Dick asked Duane if he has a song a short song, instrumental, that they could play over the credits at the end. Duane had been learning to play Ramrod because Duane had stated that Al had written Ramrod for him, and that might have been the case. We don't know. And maybe in Lee's mind that they were going to record Ramrod as the third release. The point was, that Saturday night when Duane Eddy performed Ramrod on American Bandstand, there was no Duane Eddy recording of Ramrod at the time. So Monday, Jamie Records has all these orders for the song Ramrod, and it's even mentioned on the back of Duane's first album, the fact that the song was performed and Duane had to fly to Phoenix for a record that was not yet produced, but he never did fly to Phoenix to record Ramrod. What Lee was forced to do, because, of course, Rebel Rouser was still on the charts. It had been 7 or 8 weeks after the record came out, and they really weren't looking. They thought they had some time to get that third release out. Well, suddenly they've got orders, and you can't let that go away. So Lee had to come up with something, and so Lee remembered that he had Al's version of Ramrod on the shelf. He took the original tape, he added the Sharps, which was the vocal group, and they did claps and they did the yelps. He added a saxophone player. He lengthened the record slightly, repeated a chorus, and made it a little bit longer, but he used the same master tape all the way through. Al Casey's original master. As I mentioned, the flip side, The Walker was also an Al Casey song. It was the backing track to a Liberty release called She's Gotta Shake. And once again, Lee put the saxophones on it, the claps, and made it sound as much as he could like Rebel Rouser. In 58, by the time Rebel Rouser was out, they had the tank in the mix, so they were able to add an echoey sound. And if you listen to Ramrod and Rebel Rouser, there's a definite difference. I can say that I hear it in the player, that the attack, the sound is different, but it's a different texture, it's a different feel. Al isn't concentrating on the low strings as Lee was in Rebel Rouser. One other confusing thing that shortly after the Jamie version came out, Cindy Records decided to take that original Ford version and put it out by themselves, but they listed the artist as Frantic Johnny Rogers, but it's actually Al Casey. I know it only adds to the confusion. The flip side is not Al, it's a completely different group. But anyway, that's the Ramrod, that's Al on this version too. And then a little bit later in the 60s, when Lee and Lester had Greg Mark, they took the flip side of the original Ford record and released it as by Duane Eddy once again, knowing obviously that it was Al, but what the heck, they put it out anyway, and they kind of lengthened it up and made a part 1 and part 2 out of it. But this is Al Casey playing on both sides of this record also. So I guess the point is that after all this time, it's been over 50 years now, I just want to give Al his credit, his due, as the man who really was the first guy to really record. It wasn't the true twangy sound that was developed after it was recorded, but it was the seed. Lee Hazelwood produced it, and it was the beginning of the twangy sound. And the fact that we're here in 2010 and certain folks are, I don't want to say lying, but I know Stewart knows down deep in his heart that who's actually playing on this. And I just want to give Al some credit. He's due the credit. It's kind of disrespectful to both the memory of Al and to Duane Eddy fans, too, who deserve to know the truth. And as I say, I know some people might be upset about this, but it's time that the true story was out. And we'll be showing you on the computer how all 3 songs, all 3 different records are actually from the same master. So we'll be showing that to you in just a little while, and you'll be able to see and hear that the song Ramrod, all 3 versions, the original Ford version, the Frantic Johnny Rogers, and Duane Eddy's version, were all taken from the same master tape. So this is all done with love by a lot of Al's friends who know the true story and just want to give Al his proper respect and his credit and place in the history of Arizona music, and hope that you can make up your mind and you decide who's playing on Duane Eddy's hit version of Ramrod. Thank you very much.